It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Dad had finally promised to take me and my sister on a camping trip. Me and my sister were so happy that my sister were screaming. My sister was usually mean to me, but that day she seemed different. I also want to go on a camping trip because it looks so fun. I want to spend time with my sister. We packed our bags and left. We took our car out of the garage and packed our bags inside. We waited for our sister to get in the car. Once she was inside, we were ready to start our camping trip. We were both super excited because we had been waiting for this camping trip for a long time. As we drove farther away from home, the city slowly disappeared and the campsite came into view. When we reached the campsite, everything was already set up. The tent was ready and the campfire was already burning. Dad told us to collect some wood while he prepared dinner. My sister and I looked around the campsite. She looked at me and said, "Don't tell Dad, but I'm actually glad you're here." That made me feel happier than ever. We laughed, but neither of us knew that would be the last normal moment we'd have. That night, the bright moon lit up the campsite. Dad made dinner for all of us. We sat around the campfire and enjoyed the warm meal together. After we ate, my sister said she was tired and went into the tent. I smiled and said, "Good night, sister." She smiled back and went inside the tent to sleep. A few minutes later, I heard her calling my name. I quickly opened the tent, but she wasn't there. I looked around, confused and worried. The forest was completely quiet, and I couldn't see her anywhere. I thought she was playing a prank, so I searched around the campsite. I checked behind the tent, near the campfire, and around the trees, but I couldn't find her anywhere. Then I noticed something. Her flashlight was lying on the ground, and it was still turned on. Then I heard a strange noise coming from deeper in the campsite. I called out, "Are you there?" But there was no answer. I ran back to Dad as fast as I could. "Dad, she's missing!" I shouted, feeling scared. Dad was shocked. He immediately grabbed a flashlight and we started searching everywhere. We checked around this campsite, behind the trees, and along the path into the forest. After an hour, Dad called the police. The police arrived at the campsite early in the morning. By morning, everyone was searching for her. And then something happened that I never expected. The police found my sister's backpack near a big rocky hill. Everyone rushed over to see what was inside. The police officer picked up the backpack and asked me, "Whose bag is this?" "It's my sister's," I said. Everyone rushed over to see what was inside. There was a small note inside the backpack. The note only said 2 words. "I'm sorry." My heart sank. I had no idea what those words meant. Dad looked at me and asked, "Did you two argue?" I quickly shook my head. No, but Dad didn't believe me. He looked worried and asked me again, trying to understand what had happened between us. Even my aunt came to the campsite. She looked at me and asked, "Tell me exactly what happened." I told her everything that had happened the night before. She listened carefully, but then she noticed something strange. There was a small piece of red fabric stuck to it. She looked at me and said, "This isn't your sister's clothing." Everyone became silent. That meant someone else had been near the tent. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my sister and everything that had happened. Then I remembered something she had whispered to me earlier that day. "If anything happens tonight, don't trust Dad." I quietly went over to Dad's side of the bed. Then I found something that made my heart drop. A second phone. There were dozens of messages from an unknown number. One of them said, "She knows everything." Then I saw another message. "Take care of it before she talks." I stared at the screen, completely frozen, wondering what they were talking about and why it involved my sister. My hands started shaking as I immediately showed the phone to Aunt Maya. She looked at the messages carefully and her expression changed. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "Your dad has been hiding something." We confronted Dad about it, and for a moment he just stood there looking terrified. But he didn't run or try to hide anything. Instead, he sat down and started crying. Then he finally told us the truth. My sister had discovered that someone had been secretly stealing money from Dad's business, and Dad had been trying to figure out who was behind it without putting her in danger. She had found evidence and was planning to tell the police. Dad had been trying to protect her, but someone else had been following them. That person had taken my sister, and Dad had been receiving threats. I looked at him, confused and angry, and asked, "Then why did you let everyone think I did something?" Dad looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "Because I was scared. I thought if they believed you were involved, they would stop looking for her." For a moment, nobody said anything. But then Aunt Maya interrupted. She had found something else, a location saved on the second phone. It led to a dark area behind the stadium. We immediately called the police, then went there together, hoping my sister was still alive. We searched for her everywhere, but we couldn't find her. Then the police asked us to check the location again. Then Aunt Maya checked the location again and pointed toward the area behind the stadium seats. And that's when we saw my sister crying and looking completely hopeless. The moment she saw me, she ran straight into my arms. I hugged her as tightly as I could. She whispered, "I knew you'd find me." I started crying and said, "I'd never stop looking for you." The police arrested the person who had taken her. Later, Dad apologized to both of us, but my sister looked at him and said, "You don't have to protect us by lying anymore." Dad nodded. For the first time, he listened. A few weeks later, we went camping again. Dad stayed close and Aunt Maya came with us. We all stayed together in a really large tent with enough space and beds for everyone to sleep comfortably. My sister sat beside me near the fire and handed me a marshmallow. I looked at her and asked, "What's this for?" She smiled and said, "For finding me." I smiled back, "You're welcome." Then she added, "But don't think I'm going to stop annoying you." I laughed, and for the first time, I wasn't scared of losing my family anymore.